Hi everyone, Radhe Radhe. In this video, we're going to do the final verse of chapter 10. We're going to be doing chapter 10, verse 42, and Bhagwan Shri Krishna is tying up all of his vibhutis that he's mentioned, 82 opulences, I think 82 vibhutis that he's mentioned over in this chapter, because Arjun started off the chapter by asking Bhagwan Shri Krishna, please tell me all of your opulences. And then Bhagwan Shri Krishna is now saying, and this is so important here, right? Because he's saying mine. Aham, I. So he's saying my vibhutis, these are my things. So any kind of confusion that anyone might have in terms of impersonalism or whatever, it can just be thrown out of the window through like all of these chapters in the middle, right? Because he's very, very clearly saying me. He's not saying some other person, he's not saying some Brahman, he's saying me. Extremely clearly. Okay, so let's sing the verse together. अथवा बहुनैनेतेन किं ज्ञातेन तवार्जुन वेष्टभ्याहमिदं कृत्स्नम् एकांशेन स्थितो जगत्. But what need is there, Arjun, for this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Okay, so Kim, it's like what? Bahuna, how many things should I tell? Like, can you tell me how many things do I tell you with a single fragment of myself? With a single fragment, tiny little piece of myself, I pervade and support this entire jagat, this entire universe. I am situated, I'm sthita, I'm by one part, shena, by one one part of me, I am situated in the universe. I'm there, it's the universe. So it's just it's amazing. So yeah, the Lord tells Arjun that there's no point in understanding how things exist in their separate opulences. Just everything you can think of, just everything you can think of comes from Krishna. It's his energy. It's his spiritual energy or his material energy. Okay, so now now that I touched on that topic, difference between spiritual and material energy. So there is this book that I've been reading, Living Name, for a few months now. I had to return that book to a friend, so it took me a few months to a few weeks to order it, and now I have it with me, and now I feel better. I can, I'm doing my chanting, the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So I'm doing the chanting, and when I'm doing the chanting, I'm keeping that book open. I'm reading that book every day, at least a little bit of it every day, and there are verses in the book which I'm reading while I'm chanting, and it just helps bring everything into life, really. So that book, Sachinandan Maharaj, he talks about there are only two things on this material earth. There are only two things that are spiritual. Guess what they are? They are the spirit soul, the soul that we have, our soul. It is spiritual in nature. Everything else around us, the body, everything else around us is material. The soul is the only spiritual thing. And what is the second thing that's spiritual? It's the holy names. So when we say Radha, when we say Krishna, these are spiritual. So what makes us alive? What makes human beings alive? What makes living beings, any living beings alive? It is the spirit soul, right? It is our soul that is alive. And what makes the spirit soul life? Our spirit soul is lifeless, like it's alive, it's technically alive, but it doesn't have that taste, it doesn't have that nectar, it doesn't have that amrit until it meets the living name, until it meets the holy name. So when we say Krishna, when we say Radha, when we say the Hare or Krishna or Ram, right? Hare refers to Radha. Hare, there are many, many different ways in which Hare is translated, but many people, Sachinandan Maharaj says Hare refers to the divine, or at least Radhanath Maharaj says Hare refers to the divine, the feminine aspect of God, which is Radha. So when we say, or when we say Radha, when we say all of these words, these are the holy names. And when we get into this, when we understand, when we really get into the chanting and start to feel the living name, not just the dead name, we're not just saying Krishna and Radha just like that, and nothing is happening. When we're actually saying it with feeling, with devotion, and when we start to develop ruchi for it, and when do we develop ruchi for it? When we stop wanting all these other material things, when we only want God, when we only want the real thing. So when we develop that ruchi, we start feeling that real name, and when we start feeling the real name, we can that our soul becomes alive, because we then understand that this name is nothing, it's not different from Radha and Krishna. This name, this Mahamantra, when we're saying the Mahamantra, we're actually invoking, like Radha and Krishna are actually present in their names. Their names are non-different from them. So one of the Krishna has many shaktis, he said here, right? He has many opulences, many vibhutis, and all of these vibhutis he's mentioned is just a part of his vibhutis. It's a fragment of him. So when we oh, where was I going with this? When we say, I'm forgetting really. When we say the names, we understand that he's non-different from his name. And okay, I've forgotten. Okay. Okay, so let's read the commentary here. Yeah, what I wanted to say is, when our the difference between spiritual and material. So whenever we see anything material, if we think of it as spiritual, as coming from Krishna, then we turn everything material into spiritual. When we see the sun, and when we see the sun as just sun, right, a source of light, source of heat, source of energy, then it's this material. But when we see it as Krishna's energy, we see it as Krishna's hand behind it. When we see the sunlight in front of us right now, I'm seeing it on the couch here in front of me. When I see that as Krishna's energy, then it becomes like, then I'm thinking of Krishna, and then it's purifying my heart, and it's becoming spiritual, like so. And then when the soul meets the living name, then it becomes alive, then we develop ruchi, taste and devotion for the holy names, and we become alive. The soul becomes alive, the soul becomes ecstatic, the soul becomes happy. It's not just existing through this material world with the 30 miles of anarthas that it's covering it. We're actually becoming alive, because we're meeting, once we start to develop, once we have chanted. And a lot of people give numbers. You need to chant these many numbers in order to cut your karma, these many numbers. But it's not about that. According to Sachinandan Maharaj, it's about chanting in the real way. You can chant for decades, like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You can chant for lifetimes. If you're doing it inattentively, and if you're not doing it with the right bhav, with the right emotion, you're not going to feel that ecstasy. You're not going to feel that connection. It's still going to be, I don't understand this, like, nam aprad, nam abhas, whatever. There's so many different aprads and all of that. This is too scary for me to look into. But you're not really bringing your heart into it, and you're not really connecting with the living name. It's still a shadow of a living name, he calls it. It's the shadow of a living name that we're speaking when we're saying, when I'm saying Krishna right now, it's a shadow of a living name, because it's not alive for me. So yeah, I think I went into a tangent a little bit, but I've been reading that and I've been very excited. So it just flowed out. I hope it was helpful for you. So yeah, he's saying here, so when we worship a demigod like Brahma and Shiva, he's being very harsh. He's being savage. I heard this word recently. Prabhupada can be really savage. He's saying that people who think that Brahma or Shiva are in the same category as Krishna, then they become an atheist. Oof. You don't even believe in God if you think that. Yeah, okay. Um, yeah, that's very sad. That's very harsh. But pure devotees concentrate their minds in Krishna consciousness in full devotional service. Therefore, they are always in transcendental position. Yeah, so devotional service and worship of Krishna are very clearly indicated in this chapter in verses 8 through 11. Oh, really? I thought the whole chapter was like that. That is the way of pure devotional service. And yeah. Yeah, so he talks about here, I wanted to say that the entire material creation, not just this universe, but all the universes are 1/4 of God's entire manifestation, and the remaining 3/4 is the spiritual creation. Um, okay. Okay, so this is the end of chapter 10. We will do chapter 11 from the next video. Wish you a day filled with lots and lots and lots of Nirantar, constant memory of Bhagwan Shri Krishna, Nirantar, constant connection with Bhagwan Shri Krishna, Nirantar, constant taste in Bhagwan Shri Krishna's holy names. Wish you a day filled with spiritual growth. Radhe Radhe.